Millionaires are made, where we believe you can grow to be a millionaire in all 6 aspects of health. That's right. Every week, we share tips to improve your physical, intellectual, social, spiritual, mental, and obviously your financial health. Today, we are focusing on how to improve your financial health with savings. Seems simple, seems to the point, but we're going to find out if there's anything else to learn about it. If you've never seen Millionaires Are Made, this is the show built on the fundamental beliefs that every person you meet knows something you don't, and there's something to be learned from everyone in this big, beautiful world. Here at Millionaires Are Made, we are on a mission to teach the world how to grow into the healthiest, happiest millionaires in all 6 aspects of health. And to do that, we have 3 awesome guests who are coming to give you 3 awesome tips on how to improve your financial health with savings in the spirit of authenticity to try to remove as much bias as possible. We do not talk about tips or advice or backgrounds even during our backstage session. We just talk about the show. So when they come out and give their advice, it's going to be our first time hearing it as well. Audience, this is an interactive show. Please, we encourage you to comment and ask questions throughout the whole show. We answer them live, so it could be really fun for you too. Real quick, we're going to do our follower shout out. Thank you so much for following us on Instagram, Michael Ikan, TikTok, Kingdom Message, at YouTube, Kevin Eldworth Coaching, and on Facebook, Jessica Fishman. Real quick shout out, Jessica, this awesome hat helps support the fight against breast cancer. If you're interested in one of these hats to help support the fight against breast cancer, let me know and I can connect you with Jessica, who is the one heading it all up. Super awesome hats for a super awesome cause. And yeah, pickleball sucks anyway. So that's that. If you have a topic for us or want to be a guest on the show, we're dropping a link right now. Like we said, anyone has something to share. So we would love to have you be a guest on our show and tell the world what you know. If you have a topic, something you're struggling with, or something you want to learn more about, let us know. We will go find 3 awesome guests and give 3 tips and throw an entire show just for you. Couple last things before we bring out our guests. Merchandise. We are now merchandise friendly. Have it, whatever. People have asked for. We got mugs and shirts and hats and all that fun stuff. Go check out the link being dropped right now. We do have free growth sessions as well. I love more than anything in the world talking and helping people. And so I do a lot of free one-on-one sessions. If you are interested, we're dropping that link now. I can talk to you just about anything or just listen if that's what you need. I spend my entire life with people smarter than me trying to learn and steal all their knowledge. And before our first guest comes out, we will let's go over our sponsors for this episode. We are sponsored by Sarah Jones, who was buried in debt with a failing marriage, erased all of what she thought from big name financial coaches, and went down to the basics, became her own financial coach with her husband, guiding couples, individuals, and small businesses to build fun, healthy money habits. And now they just travel the U.S. in like a 70-foot RV with like 10 cars attached and teach everyone in the world how to have healthy, fun money habits. Super awesome. Next up, we have Biz by Right. This is a company, a matchmaking service for people who love buying and selling businesses. Anything and everything. Biz by Right finds cash flowing deals, vets them with AI wizardry, and connects buyers and sellers faster than you can say due diligence. Our next sponsor is Brian Parana, who is a husband, father of 4, and founder of The Call to Rise, helping busy men reclaim their health, energy, and confidence through simple, sustainable systems that fit real life. If you're having any sort of struggle as a husband or a father, or just being a busy man indeed, go check out Brian. And finally, we have Luke Harlan, who is a transformational mindset change agent and a health coach and a dynamic speaker who helps people break free from myths, misconceptions, and limiting beliefs to unlock their best selves and thrive in every area of life. Check out Luke. He is awesome. So now that we get all that done, it is time to bring out our first guest. His name is Derek. It's been a long time since we've seen him. Derek, tell us, who are you?
I am Derek, just like you explained. I was born and raised in New York, Long Island, New York Metro City area. Moved down to Florida in about during 2019. Actually, 2 weeks ago, it'd be 6 years now. Moved down with the wife and kids, and we've been enjoying Florida ever since. And I'm a jiu-jitsu purple belt. I don't have many hobbies, but training and grappling is definitely one of them. So
That's crazy. Jiu-jitsu, this is going to be a tangent that has nothing to do with financial health or savings. But I feel like jiu-jitsu either has been growing or I've somehow been attracting a lot of people. I just had my buddy that shared, I think he's 11 years sober, and a big thing that changed his life was jiu-jitsu back then. My ex did jiu-jitsu. One of my best friends just started doing jiu-jitsu. I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna probably have to start getting involved once everyone else does it. You gotta follow trends.
sure.
All right, enough about jiu-jitsu. Let's talk about something very important. We can talk about jiu-jitsu a little bit, but first I want to know, Derek, if I wanted to improve my financial health regarding savings, what tiny piece of advice would you give me?
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind when you ask that question is I think it's super important, and a lot of us don't do this, is you really need to understand what's coming in versus what's going out. Because if you don't have a grasp on that, you really can't create a plan um, that revolves around because you may be over ambitious and start to save too much and then that whole plan collapses, or you just may never save enough because you're spending needlessly. And the important thing is if we document everything, at least on the front end, we understand where we might be unnecessarily spending so that we can reappropriate those funds into something that's going to be there for us down the road.
Fascinating. So essentially, you're saying that savings is flexible.
Savings is very flexible. Not only the amount you save, but how you save and where you save it. Absolutely.
All right. I think I would ask you follow up questions, but I got a great feeling that in our round robin, this question is going to come up and we'll have everyone answer it. So,
Sure.
Derek, where on your life journey did you learn this information?
Like a lot of us, I'll say the school of hard knocks. So I tend to learn things the most difficult way, and that's by trial and error. I tend to do things on my own. However, as that evolved, I learned from some very important professionals and mentors, folks like if you're in my industry, Tom Hegna, Van Miller. They really teach some of the philosophies that I've come to learn. Not only do I help my clients understand and put them in better positions, but I've done it for myself as well.
Fascinating. Awesome. All right. Well, Derek, we're going to move on to our next
Sure.
guest. Thank you so much. And we'll see you at the end of the
Sounds
episode
good.
for the round robin. Next up, we have Ina, also known as IFC in some circles. What's up, Ina? Who are you?
Hi, I'm definitely not known as I cannot even say that. Like, no. Awesome. Thank you for having me here. I am Ina. It's hard to explain. I'm from Ukraine, and friends called me Fairy, so that's not IFC. It's just Faye sometimes. I do have over 20 sources of income, and I work in like 35 countries lately, so I do lots of different things, including singing classes and photography, but my main focus is energy work and also mindset life coaching and relationship coaching. And that includes relationships with everything, with food, with your physical body, with your health, with your partners, children, parents, and of course with finances as well.
Your financial health. All right, Ina, let me ask you this. If I wanted to improve my financial health with savings, what tiny piece of advice would you give me?
So it's interesting because what Derek mentioned is a little bit the opposite of how I see it. So if you were to put just a little bit from your every paycheck or from all of the money that comes to you into your savings, it can be, I would say, from 1% up to 10%. That would help you to improve your financial health with savings. Constantly putting something in.
Constantly putting it in. Okay. Where on your life journey did you learn this tip, Ina?
I learned this tip many, many times through, so I have a therapist and I have like 5, 6 different coaches who I work with and energy practitioners. And I took about 11, 12 courses for financial growth. And in the end, ended up making my own video course for financial growth. So that's where I learned it from my coaches. And this information came in different shapes and forms from different people, but the information was the same. They were saying to save 10%. I would say that money always go up and down. Life goes up and down. It's fine. So sometimes you can save more, sometimes you can save less. But as long as you're consistent, you will see the progress. So that's where I learned it.
I like the thought of consistency. I like that. Awesome. All right, we're gonna move on to our next guest, and then we'll bring you back out later on. Next up, we have Scott. Scott, tell us, who are you?
Absolutely. So my name is Scott Mater. I call myself a stewardship coach. So that means I work with small business owners to help them master their time, their talent, and their treasure so that they can live out their calling. That usually means folks come to me and they're like, I don't have time for that, or I don't have money for that. And then I help them figure out that it's actually not time and money that's the problem. It's us. We tend to be our own block to dealing with our time and money. And so, unfortunately, you have to do the hard work of working on yourself if you want to fix your time and your money. And that's what I help people do.
Yep, that sounds about right. I can agree with that. Scott, I got an important question for you. If I wanted to improve my financial health with savings, what tiny piece of advice would you give me?
So first off, I heard what Derek and Ina said. I agree with both of them in ways. I think that's part of the picture. For me, I think the small tip and the place to start is you actually have to have a why behind what you're doing. It's not just about the practical plan or the idea of consistency. It's why are you saving? What are you doing this for? Because all too often I see people saying things like, I don't have enough money to save. And it's because they're saying yes to the wrong things and saying no to the things that they actually care about. And so if you realize what the why is behind it, then you can actually align your savings and you get that stick to itiveness that gives you that consistency, and it actually lasts. So it's find the deep, passionate why behind the savings before you actually start putting the plan in place.
Why do most people save?
Different reasons for different folks. And most of them are emotional reasons. So they come about security or safety or, feeling like they've got freedom to make choices. I think a lot of times we look at, again, savings as a practical thing. I want to save so I can buy a house or go on a trip. And the practical thing is important, but even there's a why behind it. Why do you want to own the house? Why do you want to go on the trip?
Okay.
What is it about traveling? What is it about living in a small island in the middle of nowhere that you love, that gives you energy, because you didn't pick to live there just to live there. There's more to it than that. And I think a lot of times we stop at that surface level of the what and don't start thinking about the why behind it. And then that leads us to make the bad decisions that don't give us that consistency, that don't give us that follow through, that don't give us the ability to plan and do all of those other things that we're talking about.
I love it. All right. Well, Scott, let's bring everyone else out and have some fun talking about savings here. All right, we got Derek and Ina. Audience, it's a great time for you to start asking some questions. Let's just review real quick, and let's go with Derek. Can you quickly refresh what your tip was for us?
So my tip was, first and foremost, anybody that's going to look to enhance their savings or even start a savings plan really needs to identify what's coming in versus what's going out on a monthly basis, to understand maybe where we're spending needlessly, and so we can maximize our savings.
Let's talk about that, Derek. So monthly budgeting. Do you find most months are pretty consistent and the same, or do you find that there's ups and downs that make every month very independent?
I think it's mostly consistent, but there are some variables, of course. You could be plugging along. If you got your rent and mortgage, we'll call that $2,000 a month, and I'm just throwing out random numbers. Maybe somebody has a car note, so in all, it ends up to be, let's just say $3,500 a month. Groceries are usually pretty consistent. The question is, do you go out to eat often? So that can really start to create a variable. What about if you have one of those mini black swan events where your refrigerator all of a sudden does not work anymore? Now you have to reinvest, so to speak, into those groceries and purchase a new appliance. So do you have the ability to do that, or will you take on debt to do that?
Or clear out your savings.
Yeah,
to do that, I guess
absolutely.
would be another option. Right? All right, Ina, what are your thoughts on Derek's tip here?
I love it, and I also think that for some people, Derek I think talks more about like stability in spending, and there's also what about the income? Because I'm completely entrepreneur for all my life, for over 20 years doing that, and it's always been up and down. There is some stability to that, and it grows as well. I feel like I'm sometimes like I'm in investment market, like it goes up and down, but in general it goes more and more, which makes me happy. But it's still a lot of up and down, and savings definitely helps that a lot. So it's definitely a very smart thing to have.
Scott, what are your thoughts on Derek's tip?
I like Derek. I've worked with a lot of folks and a lot of different budgets and over the years, and there are things that are going to be consistent, and then there are things that are going to be variable. And then within that, then there's what he was talking about, the black swan events or the little mini things. And it's like I tell people, I can't tell you what will happen in the next year that's an emergency, but I can tell you you're going to have an emergency in the next year. Every 12 to 18 months, most people have some sort of life event that affects their money. That could be the loss of a job. That could be an illness. That could be, the refrigerator going out. That could be their house burning down. It could be small. It could be big. But statistically, they tell us, 12 to 18 months, you have something. And so when people look up and go, well, there's no way I could have known that my refrigerator was going to go out and spoil all my food. It's like, well, that's true. You couldn't have known that was going to happen. But you should have known that something was going to happen. And so, you can prepare for the unpredictable. That doesn't mean you can't plan for it or prepare for it. So I agree with Derek that the planning stage is important, especially for planning for the quote unpredictable things, because they're more predictable than we think.
I would definitely agree with that. I'm trying to think of the last time I had a emergency cash. I don't know. I guess yeah, I live a weird life though. All right, so yeah, I don't.
Well, and again, remember statistics apply across a large number of people. That doesn't mean they're true against an individual.
Yeah,
that
and I mean,
you can't ever,
I mitigate
your
a lot
life
of
can
risk
be
with a lot
different.
of what I do.
Yeah.
All right, what do you guys think? So here's a question. Cool, from the audience. What percent of our income should we put towards savings?
That's a tough one to answer because the mainstream will tell you 10%, but when I work with people who are retired or close to retiring, their number one concern is running out of money. So 10% is clearly not a good number. People are more afraid of running out of money than dying in retirement, and that's a statistical fact. So
Really?
yeah, that's the number one fear of a retiree is running out of money. And
well, then just retire later or have cash flowing assets.
Yeah, and that again, we talk about the unexpecteds, and we talk about illness. So one of my things is what if you what's the saying? What if you're too sick to work, but too broke to retire? What do you do?
Mm-hmm.
I would think relocate.
But you have a whole life. You had a whole life to figure that out. But
and most people do know.
But most people don't start until it's too late. Yeah, most people don't start until it's way too late. That's why your percentage question, like Derek said, it's not a fixed number because it depends on what your goals are. It depends on where you are in your life. My 22-year-old son, it's a different number than me who's 57, because not just because it's a different number or different percentage, we have different goals. We're trying to do different things. And so it's going to be different. I don't think there's a magic one size fits all number.
Do you guys offer free consultations?
Yes.
I do. I do what we call a discovery call and
so
conversation.
Anyone curious about saving and how much and what percent and all that fun stuff, give one of these three a shout and go message them, say hi. If you don't have their contact info, which we've already shared, you can always contact us here at the show. But it sounds like you need to go get a set plan and have a discovery call with one of these and talk to them. All right, guys. Next question. How much should you have in your savings account? Some people say 3 months. Some people say 6 months.
So I'll jump in on that. Again, I think there's some variability in it because it depends on the stability of your life. You know, I'm an entrepreneur. Like, guess what? My life is more variable than some people in some ways, and it's more stable in others. So I actually have almost a year set aside as a runway. That's not right for every person. You know, it also depends on your emotional state and your worry state. You know, there are some people that are more security minded. There are some people that are more risk averse, and other people are like, whatever, you know, I'm okay. So what's keeping you up at night may affect that number. So, you know, that 3 to 6 months is kind of a general rule of thumb, but it's not necessarily perfectly right for every person because, again, I always think about it. It's funny because money is one of those things where we all have the same thing, but we all are different at the same time. You know, in that we all have money coming in, we all have money coming out, but then we have different goals. And so that affects what we do differently. You know, we have different things that are important to us. Well, that may affect what we're doing differently. And I think the same thing happens with that emergency fund or that money that you put back. And just because it's set back doesn't mean you can't also be smart about what you do with it. You know, it's one thing to have your savings sitting under the mattress. It's something different to put it in something like a high yield savings account or something that can, you know, at least mobilize some of the use of the money. It's not as good as investing for long term, but that's not what you're doing with that money. You use it as an emergency fund. That's my two
I think it's the most common is 3 to 6 months, and then when you work more on that, you really get closer to a year, and that's like more recommended, but it really takes time and effort to build that.
Derek, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think 3 to 6 months is a great baseline to just keep in your savings account. Now, keep in mind, don't tap into it unless it is an emergency, right? Then when you get beyond 3-6 months, you could put it in some higher yield type of stuff. But you still want to have access to it. You don't want to put it in something that's going to have penalties, surrender charges, anything like that. And then when you get beyond that, where you feel comfortable, you know, we'll call it a year, 6 months to a year. Then you could start to look to invest in some longer term things.
Where do you put your savings at? You mentioned a high yield savings account, maybe some investment accounts. What do you guys recommend to keep your savings? And also, let's follow up real quick and clear it up. 3 to 6 months. That's your 3 to 6 months of what your salary is, right? Your income. So your monthly income should be rather standard if you're an entrepreneur. Definitely not. But if you have a job and a salary, the idea is to have 3 to 6 months of what your monthly.
So it's 3 to 6 months
correct.
of the spending of the lifestyles that you currently have. It's more than income.
All right.
Yeah, you can look at it either way. It depends again on what you're kind of trying to calculate. But in general, you'll hear expenses. But then you also have to remember that if you actually have a real major emergency, and here I'm talking like, you know, you're in the hospital with cancer and not able to work, and you know all of that sort of stuff, and you're the only income, your spending's going to change. So even when we say 3 to 6 months of expenses or 3 to 6 months of income, even if you have a W-2 job and that's kind of a fixed thing, or your budget is really stable and that's kind of a fixed thing, it's actually not as fixed as we think it is, because there may be, in a true emergency, you're going to make some different decisions. Yeah, you know, you may not keep spending you're probably not going out to eat if you're in a hospital flat on your back, you know, that kind of thing. So behavior changes. So that's why it's not as simple as just do the math. But usually if you have 3 to 6 months of either one of those, expenses or income, it's more than 3 to 6 months, because you would cut back on spending in a real emergency. And, and yes, like Derek said, an emergency is not the ashtrays are full on my car, and so I need to buy a new car. That's not an emergency. That's a,
It would be nice to have this emergency, right? To just go.
Not
Replace
an
the whole
emergency.
car for one new tire.
Yeah, I have a flat tire, so I have to go buy a brand new car. No, that is not an emergency.
I
Fix
like
the tire. But there are emergencies that are true. The funny thing about having money and having savings for an emergency is, by definition, you cut your emergencies in half. And here's what I mean. If you have no money, if you're broke and your car breaks down, you have a car emergency and you have a financial emergency, because you have to figure out how to fix the car. If you've got money, you still have a car emergency. You still got to fix the car, but you don't have the money emergency. You automatically cut your emergencies in half. You have less stress, you have less strain, you have less worry. Yeah, it's still a problem. I got to fix the car, but it's not as big of a problem, because you can just take it to the shop and write a check and pay to get the car fixed, and in the meantime, take an Uber or whatever. You've got options because you've got cash.
Sure. If I may, I'll give you a personal example of an emergency and this is a good example of because I used to think this way. It can't happen to me. So we had just moved to Florida. I was just getting my network growing. Business was just starting to, get some wheels behind it. And in 2021, the wife ended up in the hospital, and she had really bad pneumonia as a result of having COVID and sort of being mistreated at the hospital from that. And next thing you know, she is in a coma, on a ventilator, on an ECMO machine, and a candidate for a lung transplant. So fast forward, she pulled through. But she's in the hospital from September 11th, 2021, and ultimately wouldn't get her back until February 19th, 2022. Now, here's what else I thought. I thought we could come back in February. We could sort of pick up the pieces, and I can go back to work and building my business. Guess what? I am now a full-time caretaker. So you can't imagine the loss of income and accrual of expenses when dealing with long-term care expenses. And some skilled care, some unskilled care. A lot of these health insurances, they don't pay for unskilled care. So just come back to the cancer thing. Over 64% of all expenses associated with cancer are non-medical. That's a huge problem. So medical things can bankrupt somebody. Now, luckily for us, we had some savings. I had the emergency fund. I had savings elsewhere, and we had enough to sort of get by, killed our house fund, but we weren't out on the street. And there's ways to offset that risk with different types of insurance and what have you. You can transfer that risk to the insurance company, but my point to all that is, you just don't know. And if something happens, how long will you be out and unable to produce a paycheck for? And that's a huge problem.
Yeah, it's actually more expensive to be sick than it is to die.
Absolutely.
I mean, from a money perspective. Yeah.
Right. Well, it's very important where I think mindset coaching comes in, and switching from mindset of scarcity and like anxiety that something can happen, because it definitely can happen, to trust to the life in the universe and your own like abilities to figure things out. And when you feel that you are provided no matter what, and life supports you, life loves you, maybe for some people it's God, maybe for some people it's universe, or even just you, that hey, I got it, I'll figure it out. That is such an important piece to all of these stories. Like, hey, that happened, but you still were able to, because you are provided. That's what I like to think about in such cases.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do think the mindset that you look at it, or you're looking at things, in other words, I don't have savings because I'm afraid of what might have happen. I have savings because it helps me keep peace and, stability in my life, where I'm not worried about it, that kind of thing. I worked a corporate job for a while, and my wife and I got completely out of debt. We had savings. I'd started a business on the side, and then they started doing layoffs at work. I'm the only guy walking around in the office going, lay me off. I don't care. I mean, you'll give me you'll give me 6 months of severance. Fine, I'm good. Everybody else was worried about it and on edge, and I was at peace because, by the way, they didn't lay me off. I kept the job, and but they could have, and it wouldn't have. But stay or go, I'm okay. I wasn't worried about it. I didn't have that anxiety. And I think when people look at budgeting and look at savings and look at money, all too often we look at it from the place of it's going to tell us no. It's restrictive. It's telling us no to things. And I like to flip that around and say, no, it's about what are you going to say yes to? Are you going to say yes to abundance? Are you going to say yes to what you really want to do and have, or are you going to say no to those things? Because if you look at it from a position of yes, you make different decisions. You'll say, all of a sudden it's easy to say no to things because they're the things that don't really matter. You're saying yes to the most important stuff.
Yeah, I love that.
Fascinating. All you savers. Raise your hand if you have a savings account. Just what? Where do you save?
I'm the one that raised my hand, so apparently it's just me.
Okay. Everyone else raised it. I've never had a savings account since I turned 18. So it's a fun episode to watch how other people do it, and I totally recommend saving for most people, but it will never happen on my life. I'm one of those risk-adverse people you were talking about, Scott. All right, guys, it's the end of the show. We've got one last task to do. We need to come up with a daily challenge, which is a task and or series of tasks that takes less than 5 minutes a day, costs $0, is available to anyone in the world, that helps us improve our financial health with savings. What thoughts do you guys have?
So, besides...
Go ahead.
Thank you. Besides just putting money to savings, that I think you guys will talk about it more, my piece here would be that we make money not only from good mindset, but also from good energy. And I was just getting ready for this episode. I was like, there's definitely has to be more of scientific explanation on how energy is contagious and how the good mood is contagious, and the good mood makes you helps you make more money. I did the whole research on it today. It does. The answer is yes. It's proven. It's scientific. It does. So to help people with having more in savings, my piece of advice would be do whatever it takes, maybe even a few minutes a day, but do something that really truly makes you very, very happy in the moment. Can be walk, can be music, can be a hug, can be reading a book. Doesn't have to cost anything, just as Austin says, something free. Maybe walking barefoot on the grass for 2 minutes, something for yourself that fills your soul with happiness. So that's what I wanted to add here.
So to improve our financial health, you want us to run around?
Yes, I would like that.
They're pretty close to the beach.
All right. What else we got? Savings, financial health.
I think spend some time.
So really, I mean, it's too easy to be like, put $5.
Yeah, I would spend some time figuring out the why behind it. Why do you even want to save? What is it about savings that means something to you, or that's important to you, or that drives you, so that it's not just about an abstract thing, it's about something that actually matters.
Okay, so I like that. That's a unique challenge we've definitely not had on savings before. So take 1 minute,
couple of minutes
to visualize why we want to save, what we are saving for, and how that will affect
how does
our
it
life.
matter to you? What is it about it that matters to you? And if you're a visual person,
and you can do this while you're running around.
Absolutely. And if you're a visual person, go so far as to go cut pictures out of a magazine or something and make a vision board. Put something tangible in front of you if you want to. Okay. Now, some people don't like that and aren't vision board people. Other people are. So I'm not going to say force yourself to do it, but it is not a bad technique to have it in front of you visually.
Yeah, I mean, you could even Google image or save it as your background.
I used to have it on my lock screen.
Tons of those
I used to
options.
have images on my lock screen
Sure.
that would inspire me on my phone. Because guess what? I look at the lock screen on my phone about 5 million times a day. So it was right there in my face.
Yeah, what is my lock screen? My lock screen's boring. Yeah, so I like that. That's a improve your savings. We got to figure out the why we save. That's huge. Derek, you got anything to
Yeah,
add?
it's interesting as I'm listening here. I am currently just rediving into Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, and I'm just going through the steps of, what is it that you want, and when would you like to have that buy? So, maybe give that some serious thought. So, even if it could be something simple like, I don't have any money in the bank and I'd like to have, $3,000 in the bank by Christmas time. It seems fairly reasonable. What do I got to do to achieve that? Right. And that goes a whole long way. Maybe you're not driving the car that you so desire, but you don't want to go into more debt to do that car. So maybe you try to figure out, hey, how can I obtain a newer vehicle? And obviously be specific about which vehicle you want, and what do I got to do to get there. So, and the other thing I would say is also be grateful for what you have versus worrying so much about what you don't have, because when we do give more focus and energy to what we do have, we get more of what we want over time. And I've found that, and I've sort of lost my way a little bit but now I'm regaining it again. So I think, I agree with everybody here. Mindset is 100%. It takes no more energy to think positive than it does negative, right? So you could choose your thoughts. You just have to be conscious of it. And I think that could put you in a better position, not just financially, but health-wise as well over the long term.
Absolutely.
All right, Derek and Ina, you both talked a lot. Let's try to narrow this down to like 1 minute of activity. So we're gonna go ahead and take a minute thinking and visualizing about why we're saving. What else should we do for like 1 to 2 minutes, narrowing it down? Derek, you went over a lot of stuff there. Pick like one or two things.
One or two things. Write down exactly what you want, when you want it by, and have it in your forefront, whether it's a lock screen or a piece of paper, and look at it several times a day. Keep that in your head.
I love it.
Okay, so we'll visualize in the morning, and then, create like a specific target goal for something you want. Okay.
And a date.
All right, I like that. So we'll visualize why we're saving. We'll visualize what the target is, and so this is going to happen every day. So we're going to have 7 goals. So maybe one goal is 20 years out. Maybe one goal is 3 years out. But I mean, everyone wants at least 7 things in their life, right?
100. It should be 100.
Yeah, it might be a different one every day of the month for some of us.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, yeah, there we go.
The more you
Yeah,
want.
good point. So we're going to visualize. And Ina, what do you want to add in there?
Add definitely a gratitude journal to that. Yeah, that was one of the very powerful tools in the. Oh, and actually physical exercises too. Inviting good energy in your body by physical exercises. I do kind of like qigong sessions, like you just move your hands in a nice way and you invite the good energy in your body. So yeah, that can take a minute or two.
All right, we'll add that in there too. So while you're visualizing, you can do some jumping jacks. Take a minute to visualize, pick your actual goal that you want, and think about it all day. So I like putting it as your lock screen. We'll leave that kind of up to how you do it. Yeah, all right. So we're gonna think about our goals versus just put $5 in the bank account every day. This is a much better, more interesting challenge. I like it. Fascinating. All right. Any last words before we wrap this show up?
Anything you want to accomplish, get started now. Don't wait.
That's right.
And recognize that you can, whatever you're doing now, it will be different in the future. So our life is a film strip, not a photograph. So whether you're at the top of the mountain right now and having the best life you ever had, or whether you're at the bottom of a valley right now and you're going through a really dark time, it'll be different.
For sure.
I love it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. Huge shout out to Derek, Ina, and Scott. Thank you guys so much for coming out. And thank you all so much for watching another episode of Millionaires Are Made. You learned a lot about saving and how it's a lot more about the mind than just putting money away. We've got an awesome challenge. Take a minute to visualize something that you want. We're going to write it down in a savings journal. Each day have a goal and a set amount you want to save for that. And keep thinking about it, keep thinking about it, keep thinking about it. And while you're visualizing, we're going to do a little physical activity, bring in some good money energy. And thank you all so